Today we have two very interesting stories where the first one is related to a very peculiar house in the province of Misiones, and where Renata, together with her partner, went in and something quite strange happened to them. But after listening to them, I'm going to tell you the real story of this house. What's behind everything that happened and why is it still abandoned to this day? And finally, we're going to learn about a pretty strange experience, apparently directly connected. You'll decide this after hearing the story about the Cro-Magnon tragedy. I don't want to give too many details so that when you finish listening, you can draw your own conclusions. Friends, you can send me your experiences to the WhatsApp number that's currently on the screen. Regardless of the number or duration of audio sent, it doesn't matter. You can also add photos, videos, or anything else you think is necessary to make your story as complete as possible. I'll review the material and contact you if I have any questions. Alright, let's get started with this video. Enjoy it. My name is Renata, and I want to share with all of you something that happened to me and my partner in the province of Misiones. Exactly, in July of 2024. We were vacationing in this province, visiting different places that maybe aren't very touristy or well known to most people, but that doesn't make them any less attractive. At least that's how we see it. We had been staying in a small city called Puerto Rico. We were actually visiting different places along the famous Route 12. And that's how on one occasion we found something incredible. We didn't have any plans and the three of us just went out in the car to explore places. And I say the three of us because we were also with our dog who comes with us everywhere. Without planning anything at all, we took Route 12 and drove a long way, drinking mate and enjoying the scenery. We drove several kilometers until something caught our attention. It was a house by the side of the road, nestled among trees and grasslands. Clearly it had been abandoned for a long time. And the most interesting thing was that it wasn't just an old unused house. It was a two-story house with a strange style, which was definitely what caught our attention the most. We really like exploring old and abandoned places. So that day, since we didn't have anything planned, we left the main road. There was a well-marked path and we parked right in front of this abandoned house. Let me mention that its appearance was really like something out of a horror movie, mainly because of how nature had gradually taken it over. We looked all around. There were no people, no trespassing signs, no fences. Basically, you could go in without any trouble. We walked through very tall grass until we reached this house. It was in terrible condition, mainly because it had been abandoned and because it was a house made entirely of wood. There was, at least visibly, no other material. The thing was that we went in very carefully, not just in case something collapsed, but also because of the floor. Since it's made of wood, it could give way without warning. Inside, everything was very deteriorated. There was no furniture or belongings, but there were a lot of things written on the walls. It looked like someone had done it with charcoal or something similar. All of this, combined with the fact that you couldn't hear anything, gave the place a special feeling and made you think that if something happened to you in there, no one would come to help you. And I think the main fear comes from that place. The thing was that we explored a little more and made a decision, which surely everyone will later agree was a terrible idea, but honestly, it was something we planned without thinking much. It was more of an impulse. We left there to have a snack. Night fell, and after dinner, since we were relatively close, we decided to go to this same house. And to go inside and explore it much better, but this time in total darkness. Obviously, if it was a bit scary during the day, you can imagine that at night it would be much worse. And of course, that's how it was. That night we arrived, we got out. Just like before, there wasn't a soul around. It was completely dark. There wasn't a single light in the area. We had our phones plus 2 flashlights, and that's how we went in. There's a detail I don't want to overlook, as it could be important. Our dog didn't want to go in at that moment. He was very nervous, and you could tell he was trying his best to avoid going forward. The problem was that we didn't want to leave him alone in the car, so when he didn't want to walk, we had to carry him and move forward. Afterwards, once we were inside the house, he was still very nervous, but at least he stayed with us at all times, and that was very important. We walked a bit downstairs, and then we decided to go upstairs, something we hadn't explored before. The main fear was that the stairs would give way under our weight, so we went up one at a time and very, very slowly. We finally made it upstairs. And that's when things got strange, because I felt like someone else was with us, and later I found out that my partner had felt the same way. And look, this could obviously be because of the suggestion of the moment being in such an abandoned, dark place in the middle of nowhere. Anyway, there were a lot of things that made us more likely to amplify even the slightest noise or feeling. We're more than aware of this, but something happened that really caught our attention. My phone was fully charged. I had done that specifically so I could film inside the house. And at that moment, while we were on the second floor, I took out my phone, and when I turned it on, it flashed in a really strange way and then turned off. And to sum up this moment, so you understand, my partner's phone didn't even turn on, and both of them, I repeat, were fully charged.
We went into the first room. There was nothing there, just a mattress thrown on the floor. All dirty, really old. You could tell it wasn't one of today's mattresses. It was really worn out. And there was a very strange stain on the wall. We don't know if it was blood or what, but it looked like the shape of a person. It was extremely old, and I couldn't discern if it was blood or something else since it appeared black. That really disturbed us, and from far away we started to hear whistling. We heard murmurs, unsure if it was the wind or something else. We said it's impossible for there to be people. So at one point we thought they were homeless people, that they were about to come in, and maybe they were living there and we were there, so we got really scared and went down quickly.
The whole time we were going down, those murmurs as well as the whistles could be heard constantly. Where were they coming from? We never knew, because when we were upstairs they seemed to come from below, but now that we were almost leaving the house, they could be heard in the rooms upstairs, even though no one else went upstairs except for us. I personally panicked. I am saying it with complete honesty. I told my partner that we should get out of there quickly. He had our dog Upa, so we ran to the car and got in. There was absolutely no one in this place, at least visibly, and I want to highlight this because of what happened right after. Once we were in the car, my partner put the key in and couldn't start it. In fact, it wouldn't even turn on. It was completely dead, as if the battery didn't exist. It's a new car, so this was very unlikely. You can imagine that if I was scared before, at that moment I had no idea what to do. That's when both of us, for some reason we still don't know, looked toward the house and saw that someone passed by one of the upstairs windows. We couldn't make anything out, but there was definitely something up there. But we were sure that when we went up there, there was nothing and no one inside. After this, after seeing that shadow, the car started up on its own. We started the car and got out of there as fast as possible with a fear like we had never felt before in our lives. Later, I looked into this house, and although there is little information, nothing gave us an answer about what happened to us. It belonged to a Japanese family who, for various reasons, left it abandoned. This made me wonder what exactly happened to us in there. Maybe it wasn't something from the house, but rather some entity that was simply nearby and took advantage of us to scare us or get our attention. I don't think we'll ever know.
I think from my point of view, these weren't people living there because there isn't as much population as in other provinces of Buenos Aires. Misiones are towns. I mean, I don't think a person could go live there, especially not in those conditions. And regarding the shadow we saw, it's very doubtful that it was... I'm not sure if it was a person, a tree's shadow or something else. We only caught a glimpse of it for a second. We looked at each other with my partner, and I'm getting goosebumps. Honestly, I'm getting goosebumps right now. But it's those things where you say, I'm connecting with this earthly plane and you have to leave.
This house where Renata, her partner, and her dog moved in actually belongs to a Japanese family with the last name Matsunoshita. But to get to know the story a little better, we're going to go back to 1959. At this time, the Argentine colonization cooperative Ataku founded the Luján colony, and this was actually the first Japanese colony established in Argentina, thanks to an arrangement between the governments of both countries for a planned migration. This migration was rooted in the hundreds of thousands of families in Japan who were escaping the social and economic crisis caused by World War II. The Luján colony is in the municipality of Garuape, and it was where the first families arrived and began a new chapter of their lives, seeking peace and a place to live. To sum up the story, which is very interesting in itself, they mainly devoted themselves to farming, which was not easy at all because they had to face different weather conditions, insects they didn't know, and plagues that ruined everything in a matter of weeks. But little by little, they prospered as they had planned. Within this community, we find the Matsunoshita family. Today, this family owns a lumberyard in the city of Puerto Rico, and it was them who, on several occasions, gave testimony about the origin of that mysterious house and also about why it was abandoned. It was built in the 80s by Mr. Matsunoshita's brother-in-law, a Japanese man who came to the country exclusively to build it. And I mention it this way because he used an ancient Japanese technique where only a little cement is used for the foundations. But the rest of the house is entirely made of wood, and with a particular feature, no nails or screws are used. Everything is perfectly held together using different types of joints, something that, according to them, makes the house much more durable. The thing is, during the construction, this person suffered a very serious accident where one of his hands was amputated. After this, the brother-in-law returned to Japan, and the house was finished in the same way by people from the community. The Matsunoshita family occupied the house. They lived there until 1996, when they finally decided to move to the city of Puerto Rico, located about 20 kilometers away. From that very day, when they left, the house was completely abandoned and no one ever lived there again. And when they were asked why they decided to move and leave the house abandoned, nothing shocking came up. Simply, and according to the family, it was purely for convenience to be closer to the places they frequented daily for work. There are some scattered testimonies on the web where some people claim that paranormal things happen in this house. The question is whether all of this has been happening since before it was abandoned, or if it's perhaps the result of people who usually use these places to perform witchcraft or black magic. Of course, I would like to know, what do you think about all of this? And now let's move on to the last story.
I have a paranormal experience to tell you about, something that happened to my wife and me. Something very weird, very strange, very eerie, and at the same time it's very amazing. It all starts when we receive, or better said, my wife bought a t-shirt she really wanted from Callejero.
The thing is, my wife bought this t-shirt in a pretty unusual way. She didn't do it by going to a store, market, exclusive shop, or anything similar. We sell clothes through social media, both new and used. And it was on one occasion that a person appeared offering something very interesting. Maybe not for everyone, but my wife couldn't resist. It was a t-shirt, nothing more and nothing less than from Callejeros, a band my wife has always been a loyal listener of. It was used, you could tell at a glance, but it was in very good condition, so without hesitation, she bought it. Of course, it never crossed her mind that anything strange could come from all this, and even less what happened in the end. I'll be direct. The day that piece of clothing entered our house, something changed, and it's been different ever since. The atmosphere was uncomfortable in every sense, though it's hard to explain why. Considering that we had always been a very close, happy, and supportive couple, everything changed during those days. We didn't get along badly. We didn't fight, but something was happening. And not only that, the day after I brought this shirt home, I almost suffered. Not one, but 3 accidents throughout the day, and they were very strange incidents, almost as if a bad fate was stalking me. I was unharmed, but felt quite uneasy afterward. Until that moment, of course, the t-shirt was at home, and neither of us suspected anything. And before continuing, I'd like to emphasize that with this experience, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I'm telling this with the utmost respect for the tragedy. Of course, it happened in once. What happened afterwards, everyone can label it however they like. I don't want to be the one to give one theory or another because maybe the story would lose its relevance. But one of those nights, before going to bed, I felt the need to look at this shirt, to touch it, to examine it, and something incredible happened to me. I felt something like never before. I was even able to visualize certain images about that tragedy that happened at Cromañón. But not only that, I knew, but I insist I don't know why, that the shirt I was holding in my hands had been in that place, and at that damn moment, I couldn't find out who it belonged to, nor what happened to that person. The only thing I was able to see is that it belonged to a girl. But the feeling was so intense, so sad, that I practically had no doubt that it was all real. I talked about it with my wife right away, and we decided to try to cleanse the house. It doesn't mean we're experts on these things, but we used incense and Palo Santo, mainly focusing our intention on getting rid of any bad energy. The strange thing about that moment was that when I brought the incense close to the Calejeros t-shirt, it was as if someone smothered it. The incense went out at that very moment. Could it have been just a coincidence? I don't know, because right at that very moment we heard noises in the kitchen and the living room. When we went, we found not just one, but many things, objects of all kinds scattered on the floor, as if someone had thrown them on purpose. This was the proof that confirmed to us that somehow that shirt had something. We didn't know what, but it was something bad. And like I told you at the beginning, the worst was yet to come.
Well, we grabbed it, took it out, left it outside, and the next day we hung it on the trash basket so someone could take it away. Now here comes the strangest, the craziest, the most surprising part. Exactly. We saw someone who came by, picked her up, took her away, and we said, well, she's gone.
This person took her away and it seemed like everything was over, but it wasn't. The next day we heard ambulances, police, firefighters, a lot of noise in general. I had just come back from doing some shopping and it was shocking for me to see what had happened. I will try to tell the story without too many details to avoid offending anyone. A house was catching fire. It was shocking. Because the flames were uncontrollable, several members of this family died, burned and suffocated, unfortunately. From what I know, nearly everything caught fire. But the most striking thing was that among the few things that didn't burn, curiously, was that Calejeros t-shirt. Once again, I asked myself the same thing. Was it just a coincidence? I don't think so. Thanks for sticking with me until the end, friends. I'll be back soon with more stories. Sending you all a big hug.